You're listening to Start Again with Shauna Lee, the place where you will be reminded that it's never too late and you're never too old to do the damn thing. So stick around if you're ready to vibe higher and be inspired to chase your dreams. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode where I get to introduce you to a new friend. Today we are talking to Ian Chamandy. He is the co-founder and chief purpose officer of Purpose U, and I'm going to let him tell us all about this company and himself. So first of all, Ian, thank you for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate one thing I already know about you, which is your ability to just roll with the punches. So thank you. Thank you. I love to get these conversations started by asking a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're coming from, but specifically, how have you embraced this idea of starting again?
Well, I was born and raised in Toronto. That's where I am now. I've had a career that was all over the map. It started in advertising and then went to IT and then to television and then finally to what I'm doing now. So my business started as a strategy business for companies. And that strategy business morphed into a purpose business.
Interesting.
That's my flavor of strategy, which is to define your purpose and have that guide everything the organization does and says, right? All of its operations, all of its communications. And then when COVID hit, I just decided to get my coaching certification. And when I went out on the market, when I hung up my shingle, I was a generic coach, business coach. And I don't like being a generic anything. So I was wondering how the marketplace was going to speak to me, to tell me how I had to specialize. And it happened right in the very first phone call with my very first prospect. He said, this COVID has made me rethink my life. I'm not happy with what I'm doing. And I want to live a life of meaning and purpose. And I said, that's great. What's your purpose? And he said, I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. And so what I realized is I could take this process that I had developed for corporations to define and live by their purpose. And I could strip out some things that didn't pertain to an individual, and I could add some other things that did pertain to an individual. And voila, you now have an individual blueprint. Define your purpose in 7 words or less and live a life of meaning and purpose, which I did with people in my coaching practice. That was the first thing that we would do. We would spend the first 4 weeks creating your purpose and your purpose plan. And then I would coach them through the filter of their purpose. And then, because I also do this for companies, a guy who every time he moved to a new business, he ran a new business, he hired me to do a blueprint for that business so that he knew what this entity was that he was coming in to run. And he came to me and he said, I have a pre-established online infrastructure for a course, and I could just plunk this on your individual blueprint and it will become an online course. And all of a sudden, this thing that I could only deliver one-to-one, I could now deliver one-to-many.
Love it.
And I walk you through, there's these videos, there's the AI accompaniment, because it is a totally AI-driven course to help you. And in that course, you define your purpose in 7 words or less, and then you create the story around it. And then the story culminates in a redesigned resume that I have done that is not meant to say, here's all the fabulous things I've done in the past. It's meant to say, here's what I'm bringing to the table to help you in the future.
Oh, I love that reframe. of a resume because I have heard it said that a resume is just a list of things I never want to do again. And I,
I have never heard that. That's
yeah,
great.
yeah. And I love that the way you're reframing that whole thing, like this is what I bring to the table. Um, and this becomes a relevant conversation. I am working with women after divorce, and a lot of times these women are struggling to know what their purpose is because they've spent 2 decades serving a family, being mom and wife. And many of them were stay-at-home moms. And now they're trying to venture out and, pay their own bills and do all these things they've never done before. But at the crux of that is they don't know what their purpose is anymore because what they thought it was in this kind of path they've gone down is now changed, right? So I guess not to give too much of your course away, but what would be maybe the first step that you could direct them to, a question to ask themselves so that they could begin that process to identify their purpose?
That's a great question. I just want to back up a little bit because you talked about women who thought they knew what their purpose was. It was around motherhood, especially if they're
Yep,
a stay-at-home mom. And their purpose just walked out the door and went to college or got a job or something like that.
correct.
We call that a trigger event, right? So something, and when you have it, what is critical about a trigger event is that it creates uncertainty about the future.
Oh, for sure.
She had certainty. For 20 years, she knew exactly what her job was.
Yep.
And now she has uncertainty about who she is and as you said, what her purpose is going forward. When you have that uncertainty, that causes anxiety,
Yes.
right? And so I just wanted to point out that that idea of the empty nest is a trigger event. Retirement is a trigger event. Graduation, believe it or not, is a trigger event that causes anxiety. I
Yep.
was standing in line at my local supermarket, and there's two women behind me. And I heard one of them say, they obviously knew each other. And I heard one of them talk to the other one about the crisis of graduation.
Yes.
But the crisis of graduation is, that is the official, okay, you've graduated from college. Now you're an adult. Get out there and be an adult.
Yep.
And so that causes a crisis of graduation for both parents and kids, but it's all about
That's true.
uncertainty about the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the more you can create certainty about your future, the less anxiety you will feel. And the beauty of purpose is that it is a decision making tool that helps you make better decisions in the future. And here's why. Picasso said, the meaning of life is to find your gift, and your purpose is to give it away. So I just reframe that a little bit and I say, your purpose, I combine the two. Your purpose in life is to find your gift and give it away. What that means is that your purpose is your gift. Now, to reframe that, it is the one thing at the end of the day, at your core, that makes you uniquely remarkable, right? What is it that makes Shauna be Shauna and not be like anybody else in the world, in spite of the fact that there's 8 billion people here? There's not another Shauna in the world. There's
Yeah.
not another Ian in the world. Um, so what is that one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable? And when you can define that in a clear, concise, and compelling way, it becomes a decision-making tool for you. And here's why. It's your superpower. Your superpower, or what makes you uniquely remarkable, is comprised of 3 elements: everything you believe, everything you want in life, and all the talents that you were born with and that you've accumulated through the years. So if that's what your purpose is, what makes you uniquely remarkable, if it's based on these 3 things, then if every decision you make and every action you take is taken through the filter of your purpose, right? You say, oh, I have a decision to make here. What's my purpose? Oh, my purpose is so and so. How do I make a decision that's aligned with that purpose? Ah, that's how I do, that's how what I'm going to decide, because that feels right to me. And why does it feel right? Because having used your purpose to make that decision, That decision is now aligned with your beliefs, wants, and talents. So it's aligned with you. So to get back to that mother whose purpose walked out the door,
Yes.
after 2 decades, you're faced with uncertainty and you've got a lot of questions. If you know what your purpose is, you can use your purpose as a decision-making tool to answer those questions in a way that's aligned with your beliefs, wants, and talents, with who you are, right?
Yep.
So you're not guessing. You're not throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks. You have a clear understanding of what your superpower is, and then how you can go out and leverage it in the world.
Yeah, that's great.
Right. So I'll give you an example, and then I'll shut up and let you ask your next question.
Yeah, no, no, no. This is great. This is great.
So a friend of mine, she'd had a number of CEO gigs, and the most recent one, what she had been leading this company for 5 years, and when she was hired, the company was in terrible shape, on the verge of bankruptcy. She put her head down and did her job, and 5 years later, she's lamenting that she's bored because the company is now running itself.
Oh,
And she said, I think I've got to go out and look for my next gig. And she said, but I'm scared to death of doing that. And I said, why?
interesting.
And she said, because I feel like I've had my head down and the blinders on for 5 years, focusing on this business, concentrating everything on this business to make it better. And now that it's running itself, I lift my head up and I look around at the business community and I think, I've been left behind.
Mm-hmm.
Are my skills even relevant anymore? Are my, is there a place for me out in this world, or have I become, an anachronism? Has it left me behind? Now, of course, all this thinking is ridiculous. This
Yes,
is
yes.
this is a woman who graduated who got her MBA when she was 20,
Oh, wow.
right? All the way through, she was all the way through undergrad, and then she got her graduate degree when she was 20. Overperformer her entire life. This was not her first CEO gig. So for her to lose her confidence was just ridiculous.
Right.
But it was so we went through the process. I said, look, let me lead you through this process. We'll define your purpose, what makes you uniquely remarkable. And then we'll see how that helps guide you. And she said, great. So we talked. And I just get people to talk like crazy. And then
Yeah.
when something occurs to me, I summarize. And I said, okay, here's what you conjured up in my head. I'm imagining you as a battlefield commander in all your khakis, right? Helmet, the whole bit. And you've just been put in charge of this platoon. I'm not an army guy. I don't know if I said the right thing, but you've got this group
Yeah.
of soldiers, and they've been through hell and back. And now you're all standing at the edge of a minefield, and they're just going, God, does it ever end? And they're dejected, and they're scared, and they're, whatever, which is what employees would be in a company that's a tire fire. And she just coolly, calmly stands at the edge of the minefield and says, don't worry, I have a plan. I'm going to get you to the other side safely. And when somebody talks to you like that, that's exactly what you want to hear. It's like, okay, great. You got me.
Exactly.
I'll follow you, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So what came up was the expression leading safely through the minefield. And she said, oh my God, that's me. That's me. That's what I do. That's what I want. And, the funny thing about that is that if she doesn't have that, she disengages. She becomes less intellectually capable because she's not interested. She's
Mm-hmm.
become disengaged. And that's what was happening with this company, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, leading safely through the minefield became her purpose statement. Again, 7 words or less. But the minefield is not just business, right? The minefield, you face minefields everywhere in your life
Oh,
all the
sure.
time.
Yes.
And that's what her secret sauce is, right? That's what her superpower is to face those difficult situations and lead people to safety.
Yep.
So in her current position, now that she knows that's her purpose, question number one, should I stay with this company? Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely
yeah.
not. You got it. Of course.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The question is easy. The answer is easy.
Yeah. And she knows what she's bringing to the table. She knows what she's looking for. She knows what is going to be a good possibility and not based on anything that comes across her path. Yeah, that's brilliant.
Right. So a headhunter comes along and says, hey, there's this really successful company we want you to lead. What does she
She'll be
say?
like, no, thanks.
No, thanks. No, thanks. I don't want successful companies. I
Yeah.
don't want easy.
Yeah.
Right. So the job that she got was running a brand new department at Canada's largest university, the University of Toronto.
Oh, interesting.
And it was the monet. So her last CEO gig was in a company that provided medical services. So she had a medical background. And this division was she had a scientific background. And this division was to monetize the scientific discoveries that happened in the labs of the University of Toronto.
Oh, interesting.
And to create something that didn't exist before.
That is such a good example because it applies to so many different people, whether it's someone looking for their next career move or that mom who is trying to find what she's going to like being able to take your skill set and apply it to whatever industry. I'm using quotes, people can't see me, but like whatever job or field or interest that you have, you bring your skill set to the table. And I love that so much. And the way you're framing it is just around, what's your purpose, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's so much more than that. That's amazing. That's a great story.
And the reason it's so much more than that is because of the definition of purpose, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
if you went out onto the street and asked 100 people, what is purpose? I think 98 of them would say the same thing. Why I exist. Something around that. Why I
Mhm.
exist. How the heck do you answer that question?
Yeah. And I think most people can't, to be
No, 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 of
honest.
course not. Now, another difficult question is what is the one thing at your essence that makes you uniquely remarkable? Now, it's a difficult question to answer, but it's way easier to answer than why do I exist?
For sure.
It's too vague a question. Now, you were talking about when you know your skill set, right? Like the thing
Hmm.
about a skill set is it's a list of skills. You've got numerous skills in that skill set. So you can list your skills, or you can go one level above that and say, this is what my skills deliver, right?
Yes. Yes.
So she goes in to the new business or to the company that's looking for a CEO, right? And it's a company in trouble. It needs a turnaround. And they say, you know, tell us about your skill set. And she says, my skill set is leading my people safely through the minefield. And they go, whoa, tell me more.
Exactly.
Now, when she starts listing off those lists of actual tangible skills, the person who's hiring her or the interviewers, pardon me, are wearing leading safely through the minefield as a listening filter.
Yep.
So when she says, here's one of my skills, rather than that just being one skill among many, the person listens to it through the filter of leading safely through the minefield and says, oh, I get how that skill helps lead safely through the minefield. Oh, and I get how that skill helps lead safely through the minefield as well. So you see in this situation, these things, your skills, which are powerful, but their power is elevated when they're heard through the context of your purpose, when they're heard through the context of leading safely through the minefield.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it does a really important thing, and that is apply what you've done and what you bring to the table to how you can do it for that person,
Mhm.
right? Like most people, especially if you're just looking to switch industries, like being able to know, okay, yeah, you did project management over here for IT, but how are you going to do that for this medical community? And being able to provide that context gives it an applicable mechanism to do that. I think that's brilliant.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you look at my career, by the way, you talked about a career change there from
Yeah, yeah.
project management one thing to project management the other thing. So, oh, sorry, project management in one segment of business to project management in an entirely different one. So you're doing something new, right?
Right.
Well, my career, it's like, no, I didn't even have the project management being the consistent thing. My first job was as a copywriter in advertising. My second job was as a computer consultant. My third job, I ran a television company. And my fourth job is doing what I'm doing now. Although I didn't do the same work in all those companies, there is still a common thread running through it. And that the root of that common thread that caused me to choose those four businesses that saw the similarity in those four businesses is rooted in my purpose.
Yeah.
Because my purpose is transforming confusion into clarity. So if you think about what my course is about, finding your purpose, having the clarity about that, so that you have clarity about how you're going to lead your life going forward, well, that makes total sense. That I would develop as a person whose purpose is transforming confusion into clarity, that I would create a clarity tool
Right.
and that I would play clarity roles in all of the companies that I worked for, which is what I
For
did.
sure. For sure. Well, and that's especially helpful for that mom looking for her purpose because that's exactly what she's seeking is clarity in that moment, in that uncertain future. Well, so when you look specifically at your journey that you were just referring to, what do you think has surprised you most about where you started to where you are today?
How consistent it's been.
Oh,
Yeah. So, and not, and by the way, not in the least bit by design. I mean, my whole business now, whether you're a corporate client of mine or a personal client of mine, is to lead a life of intention and deliberation and, to lead a life on purpose. And that was not my path.
yeah, yeah.
I, I came to that late in life. But I came out of university and I got this job as a copywriter. And although I can write, I had no business being a copywriter in advertising. And the proof of that was that as I sat in front of my typewriter, and yes, I did just age myself, I started on a typewriter. As I sat in front of my typewriter, I would look at the words on the page, the copy that I was writing for an ad for one of my clients. And I look at it and I go, oh my God, this is awful. This is just, this is cliche driven drivel. And I started to think about that. And I realized that what cliches about a brand are, which is what you see in 98% of advertising, is a veneer that they're trying to glue on to the brand because they don't know any better. They don't know anything more. They don't know anything more authentic about the brand. And what I realized is I was trying to write about the root authenticity of the product or the service or the brand or the company, and I couldn't. All that came out was cliches that embarrassed me.
Yeah.
So I, on this 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, I got one of the art directors to, make a nice big graphic that just said, "Is that true?" And I taped it on the wall behind my typewriter. And it was a constant reminder to me to get to the truth of the brand,
Yeah, yeah.
which sadly didn't work, which is why I'm no longer in advertising. But it didn't work. But the point was true. And that
Yes.
idea of is that true
Right.
was something that ran through my entire life right to today. So the question if one of those mothers, those empty nest mothers, takes the course, the Purpose You course, to discover your purpose, um, then what you're going to do is you're going to find out, what is true about you.
Yep.
Not all this veneer
Exactly.
that you set up. And what you'll also find is that what you thought your purpose was really just a manifestation of your purpose.
Oh, I love that.
How you were in your motherhood was just one manifestation of your purpose, but it wasn't your purpose,
Right.
right? So think of your purpose as this, and I have to credit Douglas Hofstadter, who's a prof at Northwestern University, because it was in his philosophy book, Gödel,
Mm.
Escher, and Bach, that I read this metaphor. Think of your purpose is like the stone from which all the shadows of your life are cast. And so for the woman that you're talking about, motherhood is just one shadow.
Yep.
Now, of course, it's a huge shadow in her life,
Sure.
but it's just one shadow.
Yeah. Oh, I love
Wife
that.
is a shadow, employee is a shadow, daughter is a shadow, sister's a shadow. Whatever work you do, whatever charity work you do, whatever committees you belong to, they're all shadows of your purpose. And so when you can actually articulate your purpose in a clear, concise, and compelling way, and our standard is 7 words or less, right? Mine is from confusion to clarity.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you can do that, then then you just lead your life with clarity. I
Yeah.
sort of forgot my point there. I'm sorry.
No, no, that was perfection. I loved all of that. And when you were talking about is that true? I was like, oh, that's ultimately what I'm doing with my clients is asking them about these things that they're walking around believing. Is that really true? Because we've got all
Right.
these stories we're telling ourselves and these
Yeah.
limiting beliefs. And when we actually look at it and shine a light on it and say, is that true? That's where the true change and growth and evolution comes from because you're able to be like, holy shit, no, that's not even close to being true.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you asked me, I mean, this part of the conversation started a long time ago when you said, what can your listeners do as a starting point?
Yeah.
Well, there's two things. One of them is self-serving for me,
Yes.
and that is to go to purposeu.co. So it's just the word purpose with the letter U at the end, purposeuniversity.co.
Yes.
And there you can add your email to our list that you can sign up for the course. So that's one thing. Something
Yes.
you can do on your own, and I say this to corporate clients as well who are about to embark on the blueprint process. Here's the question: if everything you do is a means to an end, what's the end purpose? Right? You ask that question to a
Yeah.
mother, and that forces her to say, whoa,
Whoa, hold
well,
on a second.
what I do, or not the only thing I do, but the biggest thing I do right now is I'm being a mother. But what you're saying is that's not my purpose. That's just an aspect of my purpose. And
Yeah.
I have to think above that, think about everything I do, everything I know, everything I believe, everything I want, and say, if all of that is a means to an end, what's the end? Why am I doing this? Right? If you're familiar, by the way, with Simon Sinek and his business book, Start With Why, this is all the same stuff.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
7 words or less, your purpose and your why are the same thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's, I think, a little more prevalent these days is people saying, what's your why behind your business?
Mm-hmm.
What's your
Mm-hmm.
why behind whatever the thing is that you're doing? It's the same
Which,
thing.
of course, is why you exist, right? Back
Yes.
to
Yes.
the most intuitive answer to the question, what's your purpose?
Yeah.
Why? Why I
Yeah.
exist? But you can't answer. And by the way, when I was pitching my book to publishers, I met with Simon's publisher in New York. And he said, well, if you're 7 words or less and his why is the same thing, what's the difference in your 2 books?
Mm.
And I said, he is brilliant at evangelizing this notion of the why, but he has no methodology, which is kind of insulting to say to his editor. But to my shock, he said, yeah, you're right, no methodology.
Mm.
And so that's, that was, I don't know where Simon is now, like if he has a methodology now, but that was the thing. It's like, okay, Simon, I'm bought into the why. Now what do I do? And it's like,
Exactly.
well, I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
And so what this course is going to be is a step by step by step, right? Because revealing your purpose is a very difficult thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we do, and I'll just give you sort of a quick outline of the course, is we get you to identify 2 accomplishments that you're proud of. Hopefully one at work and one not at work.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do is I lead you through the process of tearing those accomplishments apart, deconstructing. And what we end up with at the end is 3 lists: your beliefs, your wants, and your talents. Those are the components of purpose. So when we've got those, then what we do is we call in artificial intelligence, which we have called our version of artificial intelligence is called Wordsmith, because it helps you find the words.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So now that we've got these 3 lists of the core components of purpose, then we click on the I button in our application, and AI helps us find the resonant, compelling words, right? Because when you find your purpose, it can't be something that you intellectually say, oh, yes,
Yeah.
that's right. And the facts add up to that being my purpose. No,
Yeah.
when you hear your purpose, you got to be like my friend, the CEO, and say, whoa, leading
Whoa,
safely
whoa.
through the minefield. That's me.
Me.
That's
Yes, yes,
me.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, and here's the thing. We get older, we get wiser, we gain all this knowledge. And if only we could go back to the younger us and say a couple words, what advice would you give to the younger you if you could do that?
I would say like no later than university. Know your purpose. And I know that that's very, self-dealing or whatever for me to say that. But the thing is, it's your secret sauce,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's your superpower. It's what makes you uniquely remarkable. Don't you think you want to know what that is as you go through university and you struggle through all those courses as you try and figure out what your career is going to be?
Oh, yeah. Can't you imagine how much easier it would be to just know, oh, okay, I'm going to do this class, but this isn't aligned with my purpose. So I just need to get through it instead of having such pressure on every single class that you're taking. Like when you're at university, it's just a matter of checking all the boxes and then I feel like the purpose is for you to figure out what your thing is. And they're going to give you this wider range of information to learn about so that you can do that. And but there's so much pressure with each and every class that I think it would knowing your secret sauce would allow you to kind of power through one versus the other in a much smoother, easier way.
So here's how it would have helped me to your very point. I know I'm not Einstein, right? But I'm not stupid either. And yet I was a very poor student.
Mm.
So I came out of university. I wrote my first midterm. It was a calculus midterm, and I got an 84. And I went, all right, I got this university thing figured out, and I got this math thing figured out. And by Christmas, I had flunked out of that course.
Interesting.
And by the end of the year, I had flunked out of many more. And at the end of 2 years, I had about a year's worth of credits and probably a D plus to a C minus average. So this was not, I was not going to win any achievement awards. I took a year off and I went back. And when I went back, I said, okay, 2 criteria for classes from now on, courses I choose. 1, I got to love it. I'm not taking any more courses that I hate. And
Yeah.
number 2, it's got to derive its mark primarily from papers.
Mm.
because I can't study for tests. So,
Interesting.
so, and I
That's
went,
really self-aware to know that.
well, yeah, it was sort of like an emergency. It was either that or don't get a degree. And that was not an option for me.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. So how does that, if I had known transforming confusion into clarity at that point, as I'm going into university, would I have chosen most courses that were multiple choice exams? No, because that process, I mean, I guess if you twist yourself in a pretzel, you could say, oh, that's defining clarity. No, no, no. But when you have a topic that you know nothing about, or even maybe you know a little bit about it, but you got to go to the library. Well, that's what we did back then. You
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
go to the library and you got to research the paper and you got to learn all about it. And then you got to write it down in a way that somebody else says, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Right.
Yes.
Writing papers is transforming confusion into clarity. That's the learning model that works for me. Do research on my own, learn it, and then articulate it. That's a really important part for me. Right? So that's how it would have helped me in university. I would have made decisions that, I almost flunked out.
Yeah. No, that's a great example. I love that. And it's one of my favorite questions to ask on this show because they're just so wide and varied, but they're always so good. So we asked about the past and we've talked all about kind of how you've gotten here. When you look forward, what do you now believe is possible for your own life?
Okay, so I'm going to have to sort of, open the kimono here. In that, I'm going to take a convoluted path to answer your question.
Okay.
We were pitching one of the most exclusive golf clubs in Toronto. And all of the board members were like KPMG and Deloitte and McKinsey and Bain and
Mhm.
all that.
Mhm.
And I'm sitting in front of them. And the board chair says to me, what is it that intrigues you about getting our business? Is that if you do a good job with us, you can go pitch other country clubs. And I looked at him incredulously and I said, no, no, it's how we change the people. That's what I get off on. That's what excites me. Because when we get to the point in a corporate blueprint where we have uncovered your 7 words or less, what makes you uniquely remarkable, people all of a sudden they stand up straighter, their chests, pump out a bit more.
Yeah.
They feel bigger, they feel smarter, and they're excited,
Yeah.
right? And I like really get off on them experiencing that transformation because they've got this like gush of excitement and they look at me and they say, you caused that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all ego. It's all ego. But it's why I love doing my job because people love their blueprint so much. They love the
Yeah.
articulation of what makes them uniquely remarkable so much.
Yeah.
They love me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've never had a way to do my work one to many
Right.
until now, right? Where it's a course to discover your purpose.
Yeah.
And if that could blow up so that there were hundreds of thousands or millions of people who were grateful because now they know their superpower
Yeah.
and they are striding for life through life in a much more intentional, confident way because they know their superpower. I'm like, oh my God, I had a hand in doing that. All
Yeah.
right. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Right. That's total ego. That's what I want.
Well, you're making people feel special. And I think, I always say that I'm here to leave the world better than I found it.
Mhm.
I was a Girl Scout when I was little, and we were taught to leave it cleaner than you found it, better than you found it. And so that's how, if I walk in a room and I leave, I want the people to be better for me having been in it. And so that's kind of my ripple effect. And that's exactly
Right.
what
Right.
you're describing is, is your ripple effect in the world being better than you found them? I love it.
Find your gift and share it with the world.
There you go. Well, and speaking of, how can people find you?
Okay, so the word purpose, right? Purpose with a U at the end, as in Purpose University. So purposeu.co. And you're just going to get a page there. It says, thanks for coming. Enter your email address and we'll let you know when you can register for the course.
Yeah, that's
And
great.
at the moment it's launched, you'll be the first to know. So purposeu.co.
Amazing. Well, I will be sure to include all of your links and information in the show notes.
Thank you.
This was such a delightful conversation. Thank you so much for joining me and being here today.
For me as well, Shauna. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, one last thing before you go. Don't forget to grab your free guide to get your next chapter started today. Let's make this pipe dream of yours this year's reality. Pop on over to shaunalee.com/start again to grab your free guide.